All right, it says 6 o'clock. I would like to open the meeting, the regular monthly meeting of the Raynham Sewer Commission. Here it is, the 14th of June at 6 p.m. in the evening. We have some concerned attendees and, excuse me. The first item I will do is approve the minutes for the meeting of 5/3. You have the minutes and you had the opportunity to look at it. Do we see any?
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Roster, seconded by Mr. Bickle. Are there any other questions? None? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Now, this would be correspondence. We have none, Mr.
Well,
Superintendent?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to introduce one piece of correspondence. So very briefly, but it requires a vote of the commission. This came from consulting engineering firm Ty and Bond. It concerns contract one, our Park Place pumping station.
Yep.
This job is out for bids, and we're asking for a authorization for proprietary purchase, which is allowed by Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 39M. You can do a proprietary purchase if you document the reasons for non-competition in writing, and the reviewing authority votes at a public hearing to approve that. There's two topics that we want to have the authority for proprietary purchase. The first one is Gorman Rupp pumps. And the justification, of course, is that we've standardized Gorman Rupp pumps throughout our wastewater collection system, and we would like to continue in that vein, so we'd like a vote of the board to authorize specialization and make a proprietary purchase for Gorman Rupp pumps. And the second one is on the emergency generator system that we've specified for the Park Place pumping station. The board knows we've had extensive discussions on the manufacturer of emergency generators. We have most of our generators within the system a Kohler brand. We want to standardize with Kohler because of to avoid extra operation, maintenance, and repair costs. And our consulting engineer recommends this also. We'd like a vote of the board to authorize proprietary purchase for these two components for our Park Place
In other
pumping
words,
station.
you want to delete the little section in the bid process that says "or equal."
That's it.
And we have the right to do that.
Yes.
Well, based on the recommendation of our superintendent, I would entertain a motion to put the proprietary items as he described into the bid documents. That's ultimately what this will do, correct?
Correct. They're already written as proprietary, but if one of the bidders came to and requested to see that, now the vote would be on record.
Okay. So I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Mr. Bickle,
I second the motion.
seconded by Mr. Roster. Any further questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is a vote, 3-0.
Thank you.
Do you want to hold off your superintendent's report and go into new business?
Yes.
All right, the first item is discuss sewer use fees with Mr. Kelly of Earth Source. And here's Mr. Connie.
For the record, my name is
Welcome
George.
to the board.
Yes, thank you, I appreciate it. My name is George Connie. I've been involved in the town of Raynham for more than 50 years. And my son-in-law and I are in the septic treatment business together. And we've had the problem with paying some of the bills that one of our big suppliers, I'm not running the plant, he is, but I feel that I've been known in the town for a long while, that I've come down and speak on his behalf. I believe he's got a little bit behind on some of his bills.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little bit of time to work it out. as far as the thing is concerned, and I'll guarantee the payments. If there is a problem, I will, which I don't think there is. If there is, I will stand behind them, and that's why I came myself, so that I won't leave you people looking bad. And I've been around a long time, and I've tried to keep up a good reputation in the town. The town has been very good to the Connie family for a long while. that's
And
why I came
likewise, the
myself.
Connie family has been good to the town of Raynham also. That's,
Like I
be
say,
fair
so-
and equitable.
All right, so, anyway, I know he's behind some of his bills. I'd like to see if we could work out a schedule that he can keep. I had a chance to work it out with him so that I could, know what we're talking about, because I found out about this about 20 minutes ago. But that doesn't bother me, that's the way of my life anyway. So, I never try, I've been trying to plan it for 50+ years, and it never worked out. So if I could work with the superintendent and sit down and work out a schedule that we can keep up to, and like I say, and if it doesn't keep up with it, I'll guarantee the payment to the town.
I appreciate you coming forward, Mr. Connie. Your name and your reputation and your word has always been good as far as I know, for many years, and I'd have no problem as an individual member of setting up a payment schedule. I would prefer to make sure it's put in writing,
Absolutely.
how it's done, and the fact that you say you're willing to guarantee it,
I wouldn't-
that makes it wonderful.
That's what I'm here myself.
Yes, okay. With the understanding, and this comes from, let's say, a business side of you, which you are very familiar with.
I deal with it every day.
Yes, okay. Our process, when we send the water to Taunton, we pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Then we bill you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't pay us, we've had to front your operation.
Mm-hmm.
And a good businessman would say, we square this, do the best you can, let's keep a good relationship. But if you fail, it's like voiding a contract. You didn't keep your end of the bargain. And it might end up the next time.
Well, I hope there's never a next time.
Yeah. I say that in front so
No, I
that
understand.
you
I don't like
understand.
next time, Don.
Okay.
One time is enough.
Because if this was the Connie company talking to A and B, I'd be saying the same thing to A and B to protect the Connie company as I am for the sewer department. And being in business, you know, how long do you let somebody owe you before?
If I think, I'll be honest with you, and I make this state publicly, if I think they're good people, working hard, not spending money foolish with boats and cars and gambling, then I can go along with it. And I've done that many, many times, and I get goosebumps thinking about it, because I know what it is to be struggling. I only went as far as the 9th grade in school. I left home when I was 16, not to, you don't want to hear a speech, but I learned my only thing you have in life is your word and your bond. And that's the way I've always operated.
And I know that.
Businessman, don't
And-
misunderstand me.
And I know
Oh, I
that, and
know.
it's been done by handshakes, and you don't need documents
No.
when you shake your
But I
hand.
will
I'm well
sign
aware
any
of that.
paperwork that you'll feel comfortable with.
But the amount of money that you would let somebody carry, there is a limit that you would do. Even though you let them carry it a little longer, being compassionate. But when a number gets big and bigger and bigger, and it doesn't come in, we're not talking about guy owes you $10,000 or $15,000.
Oh, I
Okay.
know where you're coming from.
Okay. The magnitude is such that somewhere along the line we have a responsibility.
I understand that very well.
Okay, if you can work out a schedule of payment with the superintendent that is satisfactory, and you keep up with it, I personally will go along with it.
I
Now,
would appreciate if you did.
With the presentation made by Mr. Connie, I will open it up to either member of the board and let them ask questions and what their concern is, and we'll go from there.
And this was obviously going to be in writing?
Oh,
Town
absolutely.
council?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I understand. I don't want to leave you people out in an awkward position. I mean, what I say I do, but in a situation like this where the town people are involved, I have no problem signing the contract.
Okay.
I have no problem with that. I'd be very happy to. And if I could meet with the superintendent, not here tonight,
Mhm.
but come back with a plan, what makes much sense, and come back with another meeting and get it approved. And if there's any issues, we could take it up, and like I say,
Yeah,
everybody, I want everybody happy, including myself, more important than town.
okay, well, let's
Set a
put it
timeline
this
on that.
way.
It has to be done within X amount of days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Well, I think that we wanted to come back at our next meeting.
What is that schedule, sir?
The second Thursday in July.
Fine with me. I'll
That would be
there.
the 12th.
After the Brockton Fair. That's usually a tough week for me.
Well, that's our posted regular meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and we changed it one time, and for some reason, it didn't get clicked someplace else. We had an open meeting, but we didn't have cable taking the picture
You
until.
won't have to change it on our account. We'll be there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you may elect to have a second meeting in July to sign contracts for contract one, if we prevail at the Prop 2.5 override.
Prop
That'd be
2,
elected-
that won't happen till the 24th of July.
Right, and maybe the last week in July, you want to come in and sign that contract.
Well, it all depends on which contract it is.
Will be contract one,
Oh, you mean the general contractor?
yes.
Well, if, it has to be signed within, how many we got, 60 days from the date of the bid?
30.
It used to be 30, but I think
On this one, it's 60.
60, okay.
Normally it's 30.
So whenever the 60 days expires, it has to be, we have to accept it before then. Okay, well, we'll coordinate that to
Okay.
make sure.
All right, so we'll get the plan from Earth Source, and we'll have it written up, and then we'll get back to Earth Source regarding when we'll have a signing.
And I'll leave it, you can get in touch, talk to me, what you're working out, and just get it done, and if it's all typed and ready to go, get it to Mr. Connie, and let him, he can look at it and sign it, and bring it to us, and we'll just sign it, will happen.
Sounds good to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you, Joe.
Nice to meet you, Joe Bickle.
Take care.
Joe, nice to meet you, Bob. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Well, back to old Park House, but I said, you know,
That's right.
those were good people.
We'll
We'll get together.
Yeah, okay.
You get a hold of
He
me.
doesn't know your money for when you used to leave the dogs out.
See you later. Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Thanks, Bob. All right.
See ya.
I will see you before you take
Yeah,
this.
See you, Paul. Good luck. See you.
See you, Bob.
Okay, for those of us in the audience, this is a rerun of an original movie, and we're just going to another chapter. All right. The next item is to vote to promote Mr. Robert Carey to the position of sewer superintendent. Will the real Mr. Robert Carey please stand up? There he is. Recognize him?
This army.
Mr. Chairman, here's just a brief summary of the major responsibilities that the sewer superintendent would undertake. These are also listed in his contract. If I could, I could offer a background, a recommendation, Mr. Chairman?
You wanna make a recommendation? Go right ahead.
Yes, okay.
Tell us what you know about the guy
Okay.
besides he drives the blue truck.
So-
And he had three other trucks with him down there on Dean Street there, all looking at the pump station, doors all closed, just sitting there. I didn't know whether the pump station was moving or not.
We're fishing in the wet well.
Well, it's called a tailgate meeting. They stand around and talk about what they're gonna do, okay? So, Mr. Carey, he joined the department 21 years ago, and he was hired by his, a previous superintendent who happened to be his father, Harry Carey, which we all know, and a very nice man that we miss. And Rob grew up in the Raynham sewer system. He's given us 21 years of service to the town, devotion to the town, loyalty, and he learns the system. He knows it better than anyone else in the system. He's certainly capable of being the superintendent, and it's a well-earned honor for him to be the superintendent to take our department into the next decade. I worked with Rob on a day-to-day basis for the past 3 years. I was his sewer commissioner for probably 15 years, and there's nothing better than Rob Carey. He works with fellow co-workers well-liked, and has provided the leadership, and I certainly strongly endorse him to be the next sewer superintendent.
Well, as my fellow commissioners know, I was given the privilege and the opportunity to interview candidates. We had one candidate who delivered his application on May 9th at 2:27 p.m. in the afternoon, and the published period expired on May 10th at noontime, and there were no other applicants. So I met with Mr. Carey. I wholeheartedly agree with the recommendation of John, and I met with Mr. Carey, and he has some questions, and he has a learning curve that he acknowledges he's working on. I assured him, as far as I was concerned, he had my full support. I had no question or any doubt that he could do the job very well. There were 3 or 4 different items in the contract that we discussed. Some was really grammatical and language change, assurances that he wouldn't be considered a new employee and wouldn't have to give up any benefits. He's still employed by the town of Raynham, so I don't believe he has any problem there. And his request was for a 5-year contract, and I saw absolutely no reason why we couldn't do that. Get him in there, get him so that he feels comfortable and he knows he's got a home for 5 years, and he's going to be working towards a home that's extended beyond the 5 years. And his compensation, as you see in the schedule that I have, is I felt a fair number because I checked with the treasurer on his W-2 total income. He has standard pay, overtime pay, special call-in pay, stuff like that. And I felt he shouldn't take a cut in pay just to become superintendent. He's got more responsibilities. He's going to miss his old job because he got hired.
There's nothing like that.
He can't hide too much now, and he may be stir crazy sitting in the corner, but he will do fine. And I wholeheartedly put my support behind him, and I would recommend him for the job of superintendent of the sewer department effective July 1. So if either one member has a question they want to talk to him about, go at it, and then I will ask for a motion to appoint Mr. Carey. Do you have any questions, Mr. Roster?
Nope.
So do I.
Particularly in view of the fact that, you know, you're very familiar with the individuals and the job, and
So we have a motion by Mr. Roster,
Aye.
seconded by Mr. Pickle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Welcome aboard, Mr. Carey.
Congratulations.
New superintendent of the sewer department, effective July 1.
Thank you, appreciate it. Should be an easy fit. I'm ready. And Joe, I wasn't hiding either.
He starts on a Sunday.
Yeah,
Come on.
we gotta talk about that.
He does the same thing every Sunday. Gets up.
Yeah.
He gets up, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
But it's been very, what are you, swapping documents?
I gave you the wrong job description.
I take that back then, I was given false information.
And
Congratulations, Rob.
Thank you.
we will work together on the transition in a couple of weeks, that Mr. McGarry is leaving. Let's see, I don't have another, yeah, well, I'll wait until later to make a comment about Mr. McGarry.
I'm staying for this.
Our second item of new business is a promotion that's proposed to give to Mr. Ron Santos to the position of Chief Pump Station Operator. And Mr. McGarry had spoken to me about this, and again, we have a good qualified individual. This didn't come through the commission. The recommendation is from the superintendent for the union people, which is a good policy.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, with the promotion of Rob Carey to superintendent, it creates a vacancy and an opportunity for succession planning. Let me close this for you.
Thank you.
Ron Santos has been with the Raynham Sewer Department for 17 years. Ron Santos didn't come in as a rookie. Ron Santos was already a licensed operator, and he worked at 2 or 3 different graded treatment plants down in the Bedford area, Boston area. He came with a wealth of knowledge when Frank Cabral, the previous superintendent, hired him. Ron has been here for 17 years. He's learned our system thoroughly. He's trained on a daily basis with Rob Carey, so when Rob's not here, he can just do it. He's demonstrated loyalty, technical expertise. He's assisted in the training of junior employees, assisted me whenever I have some technical questions, and to make him a chief pump station operator is a small raise for him, and also increased responsibilities, which are spelled out in the job description that we prepared. I reviewed this with Ron. He's willing and eager to accept these additional responsibilities that have previously been carried by Rob. So it's for these reasons that I strongly recommend Ron Santos to be promoted to the position of Chief Pump Station Operator, which is a job description and position that's authorized by the Raynham Sewer Union.
Okay, and we assume that he's, as you say, he's willing to take on the responsibility
Yes, I.
with the promotion,
Yes.
without the raise? He was just nodding his head so much, I figured I'd see if he was awake. I'll entertain a motion to process the promotion that was suggested by our superintendent.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Bickle.
I'll second the motion.
And Mr. Rosler says he seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ron.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I would like to say thank you to the board, and I would like to thank John and Rob for having the confidence in me.
He's going. He's still here. He's still here. You don't have to say anything about him. Don't worry about
I've always
it.
had an excellent working relationship with Rob, so it'll be a good transition, and I look forward to working with him. So,
Well
thank you.
deserved.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well deserved.
Will that stop the letters from his mother?
That's between you and him. That's nothing to do with us. And our next one is to vote to promote Mr. Brian Oldfield to the position of inspector.
So we have an employee, Brian Oldfield, who's been with the department for 20 years. And in the same light, he's worked with Rob Carey for those 20 years. He's learned the system intimately.
Wait a minute. extensively or thoroughly,
Thoroughly,
not intimately.
Well, you're gonna see how they get into these,
I do, but
Yeah.
he's a much finer gentleman to be intimately with the system. All right,
And Brian came to us with a particular skill. In his previous career, he was a licensed HVAC technician. He still maintains that license and that knowledge, and we've used that expertise from time to time within our sewer department. And just recently, we sent him down to town hall to help with a problem they had down there. So that's additional expertise that he possesses. Now, in the course of his regular duties in the sewer department, there's an area of specialty which entails tying in all the services for new homes, and when a contractor is working on a commercial or industrial development, he has to do those inspections. And he kind of gravitated towards doing those inspections because he integrates with the contract as well, drain layers, the customers, and so forth. He has a nice way, a nice demeanor of interacting with these people. And so we have a position in the sewer union that provides for upward mobility, and it's the title of inspector. Brian will still be doing all his regular duties, but now he would, his area of specialty would be recognized and formalized. I recommend him to be promoted to the position of inspector within the sewer department effective July 1st.
okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Bickle,
Second, yeah.
seconded by Mr. Rosta. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is a vote. There you go.
Congratulations, Brian.
Congratulations to all
Thank
of you
you.
people who have been promoted.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service, your continuing work, and let's hope we don't create a bigger problem for you and keep expanding the sewer that you got. You stay away from the intimacy in the system. If you find out, send it to McGarry.
Oh, guaranteed.
Okay. The next one is that we have Mr. Tony DeCruz and Dan Holmes from Ty and Bond, who's going to discuss the status of Phase 7 Contract 1 advertisement, status of Paramount Drive Plumbing Station, and a couple of other things, so let them begin.
All right, thanks. So contract 1 is actively out to bid. We have a pretty good list of plan holders that have already obtained the documents. We had a pre-construction meeting last week, it was. Not very well attended, only one contractor and the pump manufacturing representative. But that doesn't mean there's not interest in it. It's a nice sized project that should have some good competitive bids. Bids are scheduled for next Friday, the 22nd at 10 a.m. We'll open them up here. And then after that, we will wait for the Prop 2.5 override vote.
So you're gonna have bid openings next Friday
Yep,
at 10?
10 a.m. Yep.
Here?
Are you gonna be,
Yeah, it'll be right here.
are you gonna be around to go at noontime to the function for Mr. McGarry?
We will be.
He's getting intimate to the 44 pump station. He's right
Right next
nearby.
door.
Yes, he's right nearby.
Yes, yes.
You don't think
we
you're
will,
gonna get out easy, do you, John?
I'm gonna call it sick that day.
we are planning to attend, and
Good.
we'll even
If they
get
hadn't
Mr.
invited,
Sheridan out of retirement to attend.
if they hadn't invited you, I would be formally inviting you this evening. So,
Thank you.
I mean,
Nope,
you've
planning
been,
to-
you guys have been a big part of the team that has got this ship moving, along with the direction, even though his compass at times might have been deviating, but that didn't make much difference because your compass was going the other way, so somehow we got it going where we're supposed to.
at least on a straight path.
Yes. It's a different chairman, you know.
It
The
is.
other chairman was very businesslike.
Yes. So, after the bid openings, we'll wait for the vote and,
Well, the nice part about it is, if they're all gonna give us a 60-day grace for signing,
Yep.
a month later, we'll know,
you will, yeah.
okay? And it would still give us the time to sign the contracts the 1st of August at a regular meeting, not necessarily have to have a special, but could have a special if we can get them in the ground and moving real fast,
And
okay? It
after-
takes them a while to get ready.
Correct. And after we open bids and review them and are
takes
kind
you
of
a little
set on
while.
that low bidder, we can
Yeah.
also, we can even ask them before contracts are signed what their planned schedule is. They may be more in a rush and they may not, so we can,
So we have a little flexibility.
yeah,
We
absolutely,
would not have had it if it was only 30 days.
correct.
So it's on a schedule that we can work with, John and
Yeah.
Rob.
So then for the Phase 7 Contract 2, similar, we need to wait for the vote. Everything on this contract's on hold until the vote comes through. We have spoken with our surveyor in geotech and said pencil in some time shortly after the vote. And if it goes through, we can get started on that quickly. Paramount Drive, that project is active. We opened bids. The low bidder was Robert B. Hour, good contractor, local to the Cape. They have provided a submittal and we're expecting to be mobilizing and starting now, really. That's been pushed back a little bit. They're still working on some major submittals, which is the pump submittal, and there's a large valve chamber submittal. So they're working on with their precaster and Gorman Rupp to understand their schedules, how that fits into their overall, and they didn't want to move all their equipment here if they're going to be pushed out a little bit.
No, I appreciate their problem. The elephant in the room is Gorman Rupp.
Yeah.
They'll get it to you when they get it to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of construction going on. I
Yes.
think they're pretty
Yeah,
busy.
That's, in the deepest recession, that was the same comment. I got a lot of stuff going on, I can't get to doing the pumps. Okay, you don't put them on the shelf, you don't manufacture, no, they're custom made. Okay, what do they do with the mold? Break it afterwards and then they have to recreate a whole new mold? But that's fine, your progress is good.
Yeah. So we hope end of the month they'll at least be starting to mobilize to the site and get started on that. What else do you want me to talk about? The Taunton River Bank stabilization. We have, about a year ago, we were set up some monitoring points along the bank of the river.
See if it was washing too
Yeah,
close.
see if it was moving. There's visual signs, probably 10 years ago. The riprap was placed
Yes.
around the manhole, and it was up flush to grade. Since that time, they're large boulders that are on the bank have, you can see that they visually moved somehow. There's some leaning against a tree on the river bank, and the grade is starting to slope down. So the idea was, let's check that area very carefully, but also the 400-foot stretch upriver where the sewer is adjacent to the bank. Let's monitor that slope as well. So we have a surveyor set some points out there. They've been going out every other month to check the location, see if they're sliding, see if there's any consistency, and we have them scheduled for their last inspection last week of June. So that's coming up. So I'll wrap up that study.
Any preliminary ideas?
Preliminary ideas, it's not moving quickly. So we'll get Rob at least 5 more years out of that pipeline.
Well, I mean, the things that you could do, you know, would be more riprap, but the water, depending on the velocity of the water, moving the stones down and undermining and having it drop, rather than getting in there with, deep pylons and fill it in with concrete to protect it. Even though it's moving slightly, I would hope, you could say, given him 5 years before he has to worry about it, I'd like to make sure that there are positive steps proposed that can just take place by just saying, look, we need to do this, and it's been on the planning stages, and we know this has got to be done, and we will have a line item sitting in our budget to take care of that.
Absolutely.
You know?
This was, if you remember back a year ago, we kind of talked about a very large scale scope where we do the monitoring, we check, put in some inclinometers so you can actually see if the soil is moving. But it was a large scope item. So we pulled that back and said, let's just monitor the surface for a year and see if there's an area that's of greater concern or if everything seems stable, and then come up with a plan from that. So after we get this last survey, we'll send out a little tech memo with, it'll likely be recommending repair of this slope in the vicinity of that manhole where you have seen some movement, along with possibly lining that pipeline. That pipeline's an old AC asbestos cement pipe. The joints aren't as
Solid.
rigid or solid as current day pipe, so obviously we don't want a break of that joint and have the wastewater go right into the river. So possibly line that section so it kind of creates a new solid pipe there. But what this does do is it tells us that the rest of the slope isn't really looking like it's eroding or anything like that. So it's kind of narrowed our focus down to this one area, and you don't have some cost
Yeah,
savings there rather than
we had some very heavy rains this spring,
yeah.
and there was some flooding in the river, especially down on Church Street. And of course, when it goes up and goes over there, then it goes down again, and then it starts going that way faster, and that's what takes your walls down.
Mm-hmm.
So the more velocity, the more water was going, I would suspect that you would see a change from last year to this year.
Only slightly. We monitored another area to the north where there's a paved leak off from the large driveway area.
Yep.
With a riprap little channel that goes down, and we did see a little bit of movement there, so a combination maybe of the two. That may
Them two
be,
areas were repaired at the same time.
They were.
9-10 years ago.
so
Yeah.
that could have
Okay.
played a role too. So
Yeah.
maybe we can look at that, repair that as well.
That's behind, what used to, well,
Rick's
Chip-
using-
Music Grill behind Friendly's area over there.
Yeah. behind Friendly's, to the right.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so that's coming to a conclusion here soon. We can talk about next steps at a later date. The cross-country sewer line access between Katy Drive and King Street. We have surveyed that piece of land. This is a cross-country sewer. It's pretty wet, very wet back there. Rob has to maintain it a couple times a year. It's difficult to access. There's a brook adjacent to the Katy Drive area. So we were looking at ways that we could cross that brook and begin the permitting process for that.
Maybe elevate the manholes so we're not draining the swamp.
Correct. Reduce that inflow.
Yeah.
No, I know where it is. I know, I watched them put it in as they crossed King Street.
Okay.
They came across King Street at the little brook there and
Right.
went in the woods right next to a friend of mine's house, and out back, and I said, I know the back is a little damp in places. And a friend of mine who was on conservation says, I wouldn't use the word damp.
Sounds about right.
So,
No, it's very wet. We had some wetland scientists go out and flag the limits. Intent is to permit a new gravel drive as far back in there as possible and come up with a method for crossing that. We'll be working on a couple concepts that we'll end up meeting with Rob, maybe John, and talk about those options. The Route 44 pump station evaluation, we've provided John a draft of that. We're actively finalizing that. It should be done end of next week. This was an evaluation where we looked at coming up with two options. Expanding the current wet well, which is a large underground wet well up to almost 30 feet deep, or building just a bypass storage tank, which would, in case of some type of major failure where the pump station completely goes down, this pump station handles roughly 90% of the flow before it gets shipped off to Taunton. I think right now, if the station went down totally, based on your average flows, you have about a half hour to 45 minutes before it would start overflowing.
Depending on the time of day.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
During your peaks, it
Now,
could be even less,
you
right?
mentioned
15
this,
minutes.
just a more inquisitive question. You mentioned a new wet well, maybe 30 feet deep.
Well, the current wet well is 30 feet
Isn't that below the water level?
by about 20 something.
We're not draining the river, are we?
No, but it is right, it's very close.
Well, I know where the station is, and I
Yep.
know the river's right there.
Forge River.
Forge River. Yeah, below grade, that's all groundwater. I forget the
And you can
exact
seal
elevation.
the groundwater out of the wet well, so that's not a problem.
Correct. That is sealed out. I think you guys rehabilitated the inside of that
Yeah,
wet
we
well
lined it.
last year?
Yeah, we didn't line it because it was leaking, we lined it because the hydrosulfide was deteriorating the concrete, but
Okay.
that is a tight wet well, there's no water coming in.
No. So one option is to modify that. So you'd have to excavate right next to the river, lots of dewatering, deep excavations with some sandy, wet soils. Very, very difficult construction.
Well, it would be more of a clamshell than an excavator. Because an excavator, you can't get down there 30 feet.
Yeah.
And you're in a hole. And what's a 12-foot diameter?
Oh.
14?
Yeah, more like 15 by 25.
Okay, so you don't want to build a trench that big. You're better off just digging the cylinder, put the pilings on, dig it out, put it in, pull the steel sheathing out, and backfill. Cofferdam, just like they do with the rivers. I mean,
Yep.
to me, that would be a hell of a lot safer work for somebody who's 30 feet down, setting the base of it, than it would be, you know.
And this would actually be modifying the structure. This would be like cast in place concrete, not even a prefabbed manhole or wet well.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what they have to go through when they're putting a manhole
Yeah,
only
absolutely.
12 feet down in the trench,
Right.
and they don't have an awful lot of room inside that box.
Yep.
So I think, and it's only my opinion, that build a cofferdam, excavate it, give them enough room, make sure it's in there, you can work around the damn things, waterproof the whole damn thing, start filling in and start pulling out the steel plates
That's
and
as you go.
flood it with water, or let the water come in from the brook and compact it.
Mm-hmm. We are a little limited on the north side where the new addition is. We can't excavate too close to that. We don't obviously want to undermine that, but
How far away can you be from the existing wet well?
well, one option is dig right adjacent to the wet well, all the way down, so that you expose the whole side.
Yeah?
We pour concrete up to that, waterproof that joint, and then you'd have to cut through that wet well to get your larger storage volume. That's one option. The other is building more of a precast unit off to the side, and it would serve solely as a storage facility in case something did go wrong and there was an overflow.
How would it get into the storage facility if it's not down at the same level, so it just goes by gravity? You're gonna have to pump it up?
No. There's a manhole just outside the station, so we would excavate there and core through that and put a bypass there. So if the station backed up into that manhole, which it would continue going upstream. Eventually it'll hit this overflow elevation. Once it hits that, it would go into this structure, this storage basin.
And maybe
And that would-
slip out into Forge River and bypass the whole system. Yeah. All right, we're a little ways away from that. So,
Yeah.
But
So that should be
very
wrapping up
interesting. Yes.
very soon. Church Street, Dean Street, wet well evaluation, we've just begun that. Don't have much to report on that. I think that's about it for active projects.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, going back to contract one, we open up bids next week, and then the decision point is, we get it signed by the board, authorized construction, now we have to get construction inspection. Now, a year ago, when we were estimating the cost for Phase 7 sewer expansion, we asked Ty and Bond to come up with a list of all costs. And you gentlemen have seen the matrix with all the columns. And that all added up to $6.2 million for both contracts. And now it's time for the board to consider construction inspection and construction administration for contract one. The board can't act on this tonight, but I wanted the board to see it so that perhaps once you authorize the construction to begin, you can be in a position to authorize Ty and Bond to perform construction administration and construction inspection.
We've talked about this, John, and excuse me. I've talked to, say, the powers to be. We can sign this tonight with the provision that it only goes into effect after the July 28th vote.
Okay.
Which would mean you have a contract. If the vote's in the affirmative, you don't have to come back. You got it. You just
Okay.
get go running. If it's in the negative, it's just a piece of paper that can't be done. We could do that, and we could do the same thing for the design phase of contract 2. If you're so inclined to be willing to go with that. I mean, the bottom line is we're going to use you. You are going to do the construction supervision. You are going to do the design of contract 2 of phase 7. I'm prepared, and there's nobody who says we can't do that as long as we make it. This is subject to the affirmative vote on July 24th. So if you choose to expend funds in anticipation and it doesn't come through, it's yours. It's not
Right.
mine.
Yep.
Okay? If you think that there is no problem and you feel comfortable with the people you've been dealing with, you know, it should be a relatively easy thing. You don't have to rush down to get permission. Because even if John or Rob were to call you and say, we got okay, you can get started, you're not going to start until you get one of these things signed. You're
That's
smart
generally
enough
true.
to know, okay? So I'm prepared to vote for an authorization to sign it with the proviso that this only becomes effective with an affirmative vote on July 24th. Then you don't have to come back and say, can I get my contract so I can get my people loose to do this and to do that?
Yep, that would be very helpful.
I mean, I've done this before in private industry, and public is a little bit different. And actually I had a discussion with one of the town officials, and I said, you can't give it to me any sooner, and I don't want to stop. I want these people to keep moving. I want them to know we're all set to go. So I'm going to ask for authorization to sign it with that provision. And if you're agreeable, I, as a member, am agreeable, and I'm sure the board would feel basically the same way, because if we had the yes, we'd be signing it and giving it to you.
Yep, we're definitely agreeable to that.
So there are two requests in front of us from Ty and Bond. The first one is the construction phase services for contract one of number 7. It's $371,700. I will entertain a motion to the agreement to have, I guess one of the commissioners can sign, or we used to authorize John, but it doesn't make much difference as long as it's one of the,
Well, as long as it's provisional, I'd rather have a commissioner sign it.
yeah, because if you're not here, so, all right. I will, and I'll do it in a particular fashion, okay? A motion to authorize the chair to sign the contract with Ty and Bond for $371,700 for the construction phase services of contract 1 of phase 7, subject to the approval of the ballot question passing on July 24th.
Motion.
I have a motion for Mr. Bickle. Attorney Ross?
Second.
Attorney Roster says second. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous vote. Now, a proposal to allow Ty and Bond to go into the design and construction phase services. Maybe just the construction, I mean the design phase.
Just design phase.
Design.
You had, yeah, because the thing does say design and construction, and I know it's just for design phase.
Right.
This is on contract 2 of phase 7 for the sum total of, they do it in different pages. They're sneaky. Design phases, no, the construction, not a part of that.
No.
Level of effort, page 5.
Oh, $139,300 for the design phase of contract 2 on phase 7, subject to the approval of the ballot question on July 24th.
Motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Bickle.
And I'll second that, yep.
Mr. Roster has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. We will sign those for you before you leave.
So,
Any old business, Mr. McGarry?
No, sir.
Okay. Any emergency business?
Well, how about the superintendent's report?
Oh, we gotta go back to that?
You want to hear from me?
Okay, we'll go back to superintendent's report.
All right.
There's no old business. Mm,
No, I didn't have one. So sewer construction progress since the last sewer commission meeting. Global Construction is working on the site cleanup at the Paddock Road pump station. They're doing sub-base for the driveway and turnaround area, and did final adjustments on the cutover for the sewer line. Our old pump station is completely severed and deactivated now. Next week, Global Construction will return to the Paddock Road pump station. They're going to paint the doors. They have a subcontractor to do the binder and top paving and spread the loom around. So we should get a look pretty soon at what the final outcome is going to be. On our infiltration and inflow elimination program, National Water Main Cleaning Company has been working on their contract to perform the repairs identified on Phase 2 for the South Street West and Route 44 areas. They've been working a few nights during low flows to make the repairs, and we have one of our department workers stay with them, as well as a couple of police cruisers to work nights during the low flows, because during normal working hours, the flows are too high. They can't effectively perform their repairs. And we're also, let's see, the Route 44 repair is going to be an overnight operation. Next week, what is it, Tuesday? Tuesday night? Do they have it penciled in for Route 24?
24, yes.
Tuesday night?
It's penciled in right now.
Yeah, okay. Our new inspector usually works those night details. We're awaiting AECOM's final report for Phase 3 and Phase 4 I&I studies. That field work has already been completed. The North Raynham odor eliminators. We had a scheme to install 66 odor eliminators in North Raynham due to the offensive odor complaints. 11 months ago, I started an effort to get a contractor to furnish and install these. I got held up by the Raynham plumbing inspector. He said I'd have to have an authorized, licensed plumber put them on. And then he said I needed a permit from the State Plumbing Board. So I went to my manufacturer out in California. He submitted a sample to the State Plumbing Board. They didn't approve it, but they didn't send a letter. And then finally I found out through the grapevine that they weren't approved, but that I'd be able to get permission if I applied for a variance. And I thought, based on the correspondence I had with the board, I had a letter from the Board of Health, endorsement from the Board of Sewer Commissioners, that the request for a variance was going to be looked on favorably. But Rob and I went up to the board in Boston one day last week. We appeared before the 12 wise men, and they denied our request. And their justification was that the warm air coming up the vent pipe would condense when it hits the cold outside above the roof, and the condensate would collect on the activated charcoal bag that's in the odor eliminator, and it would freeze and thereby restrict the airflow. So even though I was optimistic about a variance, they didn't give any consideration to the variance at all. So now we still have an odor problem in North Raynham. And we can't do anything in the neighborhood. The only, it appears that the only other course of action would be to reroute the waste line. Understand that the reason we were having an odor problem in North Raynham was because that waste line goes through two drop manholes. And when that wastewater drops down, it gets agitated, and the hydrogen sulfide gas escapes from the waste flow and travels along the pipe and gets vented out the residential connections. So the strategy would be to reroute the line, and before it crosses 138, turn it south, run along the shoulder of the road on Route 138 for about 1,100 feet, and tie it into a gravity manhole at the end of Ryan Drive. That would take the offensive wastewater out of the neighborhood. I didn't see the estimate from Ty and Bond. What was the estimated construction cost?
I think total all-in contingencies, police, everything around 300,000.
Okay, that's design, permitting with Mass Highway,
Yep.
construction, inspection, and how much contingency from Ty and Bond contingency percentage?
We carried only 20.
Only 20, okay. So you said about 300?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be an expensive reroute, not something that Earthsource could take on casually. But that'd be something for the board to think about in the future. We do have some complaints coming in. I talked to Bob Kelly about it this morning when I saw him, talked to him at length. I told him about the fact that we didn't get our odor eliminators approved by the plumbing board, and that our only other course of action would be to reroute it down 138. And he asked me how much it would cost. I said, well, we're getting the estimate, and we only got the estimate a short while ago. So the complaints, let's see, we had one complainant went to Selectman Joe Pacheco. He called me to ask me to follow up on a complaint. I send the future sewer superintendent up there so that he would get fully appraised of the problem. And so it's an ongoing problem for the board to consider.
I have a question. You looked at this and studied it. It seems that gases rise to the top of the pipe, and when it drops into a manhole, it gathers, and the first exit is the stack pipe in somebody's house?
Along that sewer line, there's services from each house.
Yeah, I
Those are
understand.
usually the 6-inch services.
Yeah,
Those never flow full. They're always
Okay.
partial full. So when the gas is present, it migrates out.
It is not uncommon for houses to vent the gases from the municipal
no,
sewer.
and if you don't put water in your
It'll come in your
traps,
house.
you get the gas coming out of your sink, yeah.
Yeah.
No, a dumb question, okay? Could we possibly back up the line onto where it's feeding on Earthsource's property? There's the originator of the gas. Tap it with a gas pipe with a huge filter and get the gas as it's going in before it goes down from a 4-inch pipe to an 8-inch pipe with the header. In other words, flatten the pipe from 10 inches, make it 14 inches, so the gas is here, and you vent it on his property.
Problem with that is this is a force main. It only flows when the pumps turn on at Earthsource. So if you tried to vent it, it would actually shoot liquid out when the pumps turned on. And the Earthsource discharge is,
Robinson Street.
but quite a ways down Robinson, right? 500 feet or so.
Local Street, yep.
But the problem,
Could you back the whole system up and put that problem at the end of the I'm assuming the force line comes from Earthsource. Goes right up to 138, across 138 into our manhole.
Across
Yes, no?
138, continues down Robinson about 500 feet or so, and then discharges.
To our manhole.
Correct.
Which is where the gas comes out, at the manhole. Where it originates.
How close is their gravity from their side of 138 to our side? The force main, you can make it go up a hill, down a hill, around a corner. But if you got a force main and it's going, because you're lower, if you were to get that force main to a manhole that was gravity, in other words, move the gravity 500 feet back up the street, you wouldn't be putting the gas down the street.
Mr. Chairman, the problem is not where you discharge. The problem is the two drop manholes. The wastewater has a sulfur compounds, and when it's agitated and it falls down in a drop manhole, more sewer gas is released. That happens once, that happens twice, and then it goes through the neighborhood. So you're on a good track, but we got these two drop manholes that are the troublemakers.
I think there might be a way to solve this less than $390,000.
You could do it what's called a chemical addition at the discharge. The problem with that is it's a long-term O and M
You know.
component.
I mean, you throw a $300,000 plus number out there, it's a problem that's created by one of our customers. It's his headache, but it's our headache because our customers are complaining that the gas is coming out.
So what's causing that hydrogen sulfide is the wastewater is actually going into an anaerobic state, meaning it's being starved of oxygen. What happens when it hits the drops is that it's another term is it's gone septic,
Yeah.
right? So now you've introduced oxygen, air into that, and the hydrogen sulfide gas just gets released. So what you try to do is not let it get into that anaerobic state where it gets starved of oxygen to begin with. So if it is, then the only thing you can do is treat the end source when it comes out of the force main with chemical addition.
They're doing
And that's
loads of chlorine.
and it's costly, and it's depending on the time of year, the temperature, it's
That's the other thing they're doing, is just discharging at a higher temperature, because they're pasteurizing
right.
before the discharging.
Yep. There's a
And
lot of things you can
different things that
do,
are going on in that plant that.
but
cause this
it's
problem.
difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Well, I would like to see if there's a alternative to the $300 and some odd thousand.
Well, one of the alternatives that we shared with John is not putting this out as a separate project, but putting it in, for example, adding it as a separate schedule on your contract 2 phase 7 project. When you bid that out, include this piece with that project as a separate bid schedule, understanding that the funding comes from different sources, and getting a much better economy of scale. That number could potentially come way down.
Solving this problem, in other words, pass it on to the new group of people who are going to be bedded.
No. Keeping the costs separate, but using the same bid process, same contractor, would see a lower project cost. In other words, if you bid this work out separately as a standalone contract, you're going to have a smaller contractor possibly looking at it, higher unit prices to do the work because it's a small.
Line items that overran, and some that underran. And the next sewer superintendent will take these into consideration when he prepares his budget in 6 or 8 months.
Yeah, considering this is through
Uh,
end
Say
of May,
June 1st,
June 1st.
yes,
So the balance line is what we've got left to spend in June.
right.
And what we don't spend drops back into the bucket.
So we're actively calling in our markers of vendors that have to submit their invoices by June 30th, because we're gonna close out the books.
Well, they should have it in before June 30th, and
Right.
because if you receive the thing and it's dated July, it isn't June.
But we have the usual suspects, so we're chasing them.
Yeah, okay. And the one who isn't chasing us is the city of Taunton. We've taken care of them. And that had a little bit of an overage. Is it 115 a quarter?
About,
Well, you got 460, that's why I figured 100. We ended up at 468.
well, as our flow goes up, it creeps up a little bit.
Yeah. No, I know. Well, we're in good shape. And this only represents our expenditures, it doesn't represent revenue. And it looks like we got enough, because we knew we had enough revenue. That's good. Thank you, John.
That's it.
That's it. Mr. Ross, do you have any questions, commentaries, or anything?
No, no thanks.
Okay, how about you, Joseph?
I do not, you were very comprehensive tonight.
Okay, well, we have no emergency business. Commission reports, nothing. Public forum. We have employees in our midst. Frick and frack. And 3 employees, okay. No public forum, no press time. Before we close, because this is the last meeting that Mr. McGarry will be here, I want to publicly thank him for the 3 years' service that he has rendered to this community and to this specific commission. His knowledge goes back to when they dug the first hole. He was there when they first started the sewer commission. He had a lot of years of service. They put his name on the building. They thought he wouldn't come back. He showed up. He has been, he's been a teacher to me on a lot of the aspects of the sewer department. The physical plant, my teacher was Rob Carey. We went door to door to the different pump stations. We never got intimate with them though, unfortunately. But we saw the different ones, and he showed me how the system works, and I know gravity is the key, and I know what goes downhill. So, but John was very good, and he helped implement some of the ideas that I had of running a sewer commission, which is an enterprise account within the town, as a business. I brought the business sense to the board. I questioned all the bills, as our consulting engineers know, and try to get things to run smoothly. And he's tempered some of my exuberance. Let's do it yesterday. But it's eventually going to get done, and I thank him for all of the aid that he's given me to understand not only the ins and outs with the politics that he lived with also, but with the way the system is, and because it is maturing, what we need to do in the future. And the past couple of budgets that John's worked on, and I had an opportunity to throw my oar in the water, and he agreed that it made sense, as we put an awful lot of stuff in the budget that took care of little things that you didn't anticipate and couldn't find the money for. And I think that's the business sense that I bring when I looked at a budget. The way things were, they were fine for them, but not fine for now. And I personally thank him for coming back to Raynham to help us out at a time that we needed some help, and calm the waters, and everything's going downhill to Route 44, and we hope the pipe doesn't swing into the river, and they'll sue us, and we'll just say, no, it was an act of God, and we're not responsible for act of God. If he did it, let him fix it. I should have burned you a little more, John, but I didn't. You're a good man, and I thank you.
Thank you for
I
your
truly
kind words.
mean that I learned a lot from you, and I appreciate what you did for us for the past 3 years.
Well, thank you, Joe.
Okay.
I enjoyed working for you and the leadership you bring to the board. Thank
Oh,
you.
you're saying that because you're going out the door. There are no other questions, then I would ask for a motion to adjourn for the purpose of signing bills and no other activity.
Motion.
Second.
Made by Mr. Bickle, seconded by Mr. Roster. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is a vote. Thank you very much.